Hi guys. Okay, basically what we're going to talk about is just basic Excel spreadsheet use. And I want to show you some of the Excel spreadsheets that I use. It just makes your whole life a whole lot easier. For example, I do a cattle card on Excel for my cattle crew, and I can keep track of all the entries in each pen, the cattle that we use in each pen. I can keep track of the fresh cattle that I've used. I can keep track of the number of works that we've had. Add them together, and I'll have my totals at the end of the day without doing a whole lot of calculations. I usually go ahead and I print these off at the beginning of the day for my cattle crew. And if we don't have all of the numbers in there yet, he just fills in those numbers and then we balance against each other at the end of the day. Something else that I do at the bottom of the page is I'll put on just a little calculation cheat sheet. And that's mostly for when the guys get tired or they don't have time to look up the numbers on their phone. If they look down and I say, hey, I've got 9 in this set and it's only got 2.5 head per cutter, it tells him he needs 23. Same thing, if he's got 15, then he needs 38. So there's no guessing, and he can just look at that card. He can be sure that he's correct, and it makes your day a lot easier. I use it for adding up my fees, my show fees, my national championship fee, my NCHA fees, my senior fees, the LAE fees, anything else I have to do if we're paying affiliate charges. And I can add those up, make a simple calculation, and have my totals right in front of me. Same thing with my entry totals. If I wanted to see how many in show 1 I had 200 works in show 1. But now I can also go across and I have 119 open works for the entire show. Same thing at 25 novice non-pro. It was 4 shows over 6 days, but I have 52 works in that class. But I know you can add whatever column you want. You can add whatever you want. It makes for simple calculations. My stalls, oh boy, yeah, do I use it for my stall lists. And this way you can reshift it, you can resort it. On this one, I sorted by alphabetical on my stall width, which is my trainers. And then I sorted the other one, my next one, by alphabet behind the trainers list. Okay. On this one, I highlighted the yellow, which I gave to my guy, which was, these are my late stalls. So if it's highlighted in yellow, that means they came in late. That means that they don't have to have priority when he's putting a stall list together. All right. The other thing I do, if I have a huge stall breakdown, is I may break it down by barn name. Since you have some people that want to be stalled with someone, in this case Denton and Tree wanted to all be stalled together, so I put them all together so that my stall guy would know over here, just at a glance, basically, as well. Okay. I do my schedules on big shows. It makes it work out really nice. I do my expense sheets. Okay. Which doesn't look like much. You're going, what's that going to do? But if I go over to File and go down to Print, it's going to give me a print preview, and this is what my sheet's going to look like when I print it out. So this is for my workers, and I can put on there whatever I want, and it makes it a nice sheet to have. And actually, when I get ready for this, I can go ahead and I can tell it to print to a PDF if I want to save it. And once I print that, go down here and it's going to ask me where I want to save it. And I'm going to say, I want that, as an expense sheet, and save. And there it is. Now I just saved it to my desktop where I can find it real easy when it's time to let people fill out their expense sheets. And then the one other thing I use it a lot for is my deposit slips, which I put about 25 checks to a page just so it can be big enough. Put whoever the deposit's going to be for at the top, their account number, the name on the check. I only put last names just because I figure I very seldom have to go back to a deposit slip to find out something. But if you can't find it by the last name, you're probably in trouble anyway. Check number and the amount. And the nice thing about doing it on the Excel spreadsheet is at the bottom down here, I totaled it all up automatically. Okay, and that same thing, if you click File, go to Print, that's what your deposit sheet's going to look like. Then I just take all my little checks in this bundle, wrap those checks up with that piece of paper, paper clip it, and hand it to my promoter or the banker. So those are the main things I use my Excel spreadsheets for. So let's build a simple cattle card just so you can kind of see it from the ground up. I'm going to close this out and we're going to go down here. It's either going to be on your ribbon, on your desktop, or you can find it under your start menu by scrolling down. There's Excel. It's that little green guy with the X on it. And this is what it's going to look like when you first open it. So what I want is a blank worksheet. If you want to, you can take the tour. It's a pretty good tour. But I'm just going to click on that one spreadsheet, and here's my new spreadsheet. And up here at the very top is what we call our ribbon. And that ribbon can be pretty daunting when you first start looking at it because there's just so much stuff to see. And up here, your ribbon bar, each one of these guys has its own menu underneath it. So this is the home menu. This is the insert, the draw menu, the page layout, the formulas, the data, the review, the view, the help, and I have Acrobat on mine. All right, so let's go back to the home. And we're just going to look at all the things that you can do kind of. Once you click into a cell, then whatever you type is going to appear in that cell. It also appears up here in what they call the formula bar. Okay, so whatever you write in that cell, or if you place a formula in that cell, it's going to show up right here. And if you do this, okay, so whenever you click into those cells, it shows up in your formula bar. All right. Okay. The next thing, let's just go ahead and we're going to start to build us a cattle card. And this one's going to be, this one's going to be for the Mother's Day. Yeah, Mother's Day cutting. And this is going to be for Sunday. And then we're going to put the class. You can use your tab key to go to the next column. And we're going to go to we're going to say we have entries, tab, cattle, tab, total. Okay. And then I just hit the enter or the return button. It takes me back to the first one. And I'm going to say I have an open class. I have a non-pro. I have a 50,000 AM. I have a 25,000 novice. I have a 25,000 non-pro, 5,000 novice, 5,000 non-pro. Okay, so let's start with those. So these are all in their respective columns right now. If we want to change, like our Mother's Day, we want it to be bigger and bolder. Right up here in your ribbon in the home is the font menu. So you can change anything if you want it to have different fonts on it, you just slip down here and it changes the fonts and it shows you what it is that you can change it to. Okay. Oops, we don't want black. We want just Arial. All right. And then underneath it, I can bold it. I can italicize it. I can underline it. And then if I want it bigger, I go to the right over here and it gives me any size that I want. And as you just scroll down it changes it so you can see which one you do and don't like. Okay. So I want it to be big and bold. Maybe that's a little too big. So just to the right is kind of a quick sizer, and you can decrease the font size here or you can increase it. Okay. And Sunday, we want it to be a little bit bigger and bold. Okay, so everything, I want that a little bit smaller. Okay, everything's a little out of whack right now. So we want to change the columns here first. All right, so this first column, it bleeds over into this one. And once we get something in a column next to it, you'll notice that it doesn't show up the whole thing anymore. All right. 9, 14, 10. Uh-oh, we don't have an open class. Let's get 8 in there. Okay. So once we put something in the column next to it and there's too much information over here, it doesn't show up or you don't get everything. So let's go to the top to the ABC column and move your cursor in between the two columns until it changes from that arrow to a line with a double arrow. Now you can left click and just drag that sideways, and when you let go, that's where it stays. Or another easy way is when you get your double arrow, if you just double click, it goes to the farthest or the widest cell that you have, which in this case happens to be the Mother's Day cutting. Okay, we don't want it quite that wide, so let's just take it back to the edge of the classes. Okay, and let's bold that and make it just a shade bigger just to make it pretty. So it's looking pretty good, but we would really like to have this stuff centered. So right now we're going to highlight across the 4 columns because that seems to be the end of our column. And we'll just, as I say highlight, click in the beginning cell, hold your mouse down and drag it to the farthest cell that you want, and then let go, and it stays highlighted. Now we can go over here to merge and center, and when we click that, it merges all 4 of those cells and it puts it right in the center. So if we make this cell bigger, it still stays within the 4 cells. Okay, pretty cool, huh? Okay, so same thing with our Sunday. We want it to go right underneath the Mother's Day, so we're going to merge and center right there. And it finds its spot right in the middle. Okay, next, we're going to make this a little bit prettier because when we print it, if we go to File, Print to look at the preview, it's got no lines. And we'd like to have lines on there just so that it's easier for the cow guy to follow. So again, we take our top left-hand corner, left click on that cell, then hold our mouse down and just drag to the far right-hand corner that you want. See, I went too far. I don't want to go that far. I want to go to right there. And let go. When I let go, it still stays highlighted. I'm going to go right up here under the font window, and this little border guy, this is our borders. If we click that drop down, it shows you can do a bottom border, a top, left, right, no border at all borders. I like the all borders. Okay. And once I click that, and then I've got a nice little border around everything. So when it prints, it's going to be very pretty like that. Okay. So let's do an easy calculation. And then we're going to use this auto sum over here. I want to know how many works I'm going to have for the day. So I click on my first row or my first cell, click on it, left click, hold it, drag it down to the cell where you want it to the calculation to appear. Let go. Now I'm going to go back up to auto sum, and it's going to tell me there's 75 works for this day. Now the cool thing is, if I change something, watch that bottom number, and then I tab out of it and it changes. Maybe I don't have a class in there and it changes. A bigger class, I add, take away, whatever. I can keep a nice running total right here. And this also helps if you have a huge show, then you can keep a running total of whether your judge is going to go over 150 works or not. All right. Now, how do we keep our cattle count? In these first classes, I'm going to have 3 head per cutter. Whoops, not 33, just 3. Okay, but I don't want to have to type in 33333 all the way down. I can click on this cell, whatever the cell is, whatever it has in it that I want to duplicate. And then I go this little box right here in the far right hand corner of the cell that I'm clicked on. Move it until I get the thin cross, left click, hold it down, let go, and it puts the same calculation or the same number all the way down. Okay, are we ready for an easy calculation? An easy calculation. This is, if you can sum anything, you can do this calculation. So we're going to tell Excel that in this cell that we have clicked, we want the result to equal this cell, and then you use the times, which is going to be the star, which is a shift 8, the star, this cell. Okay, so I want B5, which is the number of entries, times C5, which is the number of cows per entry, and then I just hit tab, and it tells me I'm going to put in 24 head of cows. Pretty cool. Okay, so once I get to that point, again, I go over here and I want to duplicate this calculation. I don't want to have to repeat it all the way down. So I'm going to grab that little handle. When I get the narrow black X, left click, drag it down, let go, and ta-da. It automatically figures how many cows I need for each class. Okay. Oh, but we had a guy add on to the 50M. I change it to 13, hit tab, and it changes it to 39. Changes my number of works. It changes my number of cows. Okay. Now we want to find out how many cows we're going to use per day. Same thing. Up at the top, left click, drag it down, auto sum, and there we are, 261 head of fresh cows. Okay. Anytime you want to know what the calculation is in a cell, again, look back up here to this formula bar, and it tells me it's B5 times C5, B7 times C7, B10 times C10. And then at the bottom, when you do an auto calculation, it tells you what it did. It says this this cell equals the sum of D5 through D12. And you're going, okay, I'm not sure I understand where D5 and D12 is. If you click in the middle, just left click in the middle of the formula, it highlights what it's adding up. It highlights what are the cells that it's adding. And that way you can kind of check your work and make sure that it's correct. And same thing, I want to make sure that it summed everything in on my entries. I left click in the middle of that formula, and there it is. It summed every one of those. All right. Okay, so far so good. But now I want to get fancy. I want to run 2 pens. So let's get fancy, but let's make it easy on ourselves. Let's go ahead and copy and paste, which we're going to click on the cell that's at the top left-hand corner that I want to copy. Drag it, left click and drag it to the right, showing me everything that I want to copy. Let go. I can go up here and use the copy button. All right. And as soon as I hit the copy button, it shows me this little line around here saying that this is the part that you're going to copy. Now, we always start with that top left-hand corner. So I find the next top left-hand corner where I want to paste this, which I can paste it here. I can paste it here, up here, but I want to make an absolute copy of what I have. Go up, excuse me, to the paste, and I'm going to tell it to paste. Now it just pasted those entire cells over here. Okay, it didn't format them exactly the way I had it, because you'll notice that my classes are not quite as right. But we're just going to go up here, we're going to double click and have it spread apart on its own. You'll notice it's still going around like this, meaning that it can still be copied to another spot. So I could paste it again. I can paste it again. Oops, I can paste it again. So until I put my cursor in another cell, hit enter, then I lose that, and now it's done copy and pasting. All right. So, but we don't want these other 2 right here. This is another button you're going to use. Up here in the very top, this little turnaround, this little U-turn curve, it's going to tell you to undo your last move. Whoops, darn it. I thought I would get rid of that. So we'll just delete it. Okay, now we can update pen 2, and we're just going to highlight those, left click, pull it down, hit the delete. And the same thing in your entries, left click, pull it down, delete. And you'll see all my calculations, they're still working. They just changed over to a new cell, Excel's really smart that way. So instead of multiplying B5 by C5, now over here it's going to multiply G5, which is this one, by H5 to get a result. Okay, so right now let's put in our other classes. We've got our 35 non pro, our 15,000 am, 2,000 limit, our youth, our 2,500 novice. Okay, so we have these classes. We have 20 in our, we're being ambitious here. We have lots of works. We have 14 youths, and we have 12. And again, it went ahead and it calculated straight across, and it's telling me that this is what my total is. Okay. Now the problem that I have over here is maybe these first 4 classes, or these first 3 classes, are all reruns, but the bottom 2 are fresh cattle. So how am I going to get my fresh cattle totals without messing up my reruns? Okay. So first off, I want to mark these classes over here on the right side that this is a rerun. This is mostly for my cow guys, so he knows without me telling him or reinforcing it. And the nice thing is watch when I start to type it, it automatically fills because to the last one that I did. Enter, rerun, enter, and we'll give the youth fresh cattle today. Okay. So, but this number right here just tells me the number of cattle that are going through the arena. And I really, I don't care about that. All I care about is how many fresh cattle go through. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to hit delete. And when I deleted that, I got rid of that formula that was in there. I now have no formula. I'm going to make up my own formula. And it's going to be simple. It's going to say that this cell, I want it, the results of this cell, I want it to equal the youth cattle. I click on that, plus sign, and the 2,500 novice cattle. And that's the only cattle I care about. Now I hit tab to get out of that, and it tells me that these two classes are going to have 78 head. Now if I change it, and I end up with 15 here, tab, and it changes it. Now I have 87 head. Okay. So now I want to know the total that I have for the day. I have 261 over here, and I'm going to add these. I'm going to add this one and this one. I'm going to add pin 1 and pin 2. But here's a simple trick. I want this cell right here to tell me how many fresh cattle are over here in pin 2. So I'm going to click on the cell underneath. I'm going to say equals, and then just click on that number right there. When I do that and I hit tab to move out, it's going to put 87 over there. But if I change anything over here at any time, change that, watch the 87, it changes it in both spots. All right. We're going to do the same thing just so that we know how many entries we had for the day. I'm going to go over here to this spot. I'm going to say equals this many works in pin 2. Okay. So now I have the pin 1 works on B13, the pin 2 works on B14. The pin 1 fresh cattle on D13 and the pin 2 fresh cattle on D14. To add them up, click on that top cell, drag it down to the available cell that I want, use my auto sum, and there it is. Same thing on this one. Left click, drag it down, auto sum. Ooh, pretty fancy. So these are my day totals at the end of my day. I may make them a little bit bigger. I may go ahead and say this is my totals column. I may say pin 1, pin 2, pin 1 fresh, oops, I was say pin 2, and then this is fresh cattle. And this is my works. All right. And then if we just want to be a little fancy so that we know what we did add, is we left click here, drag it over here to highlight. Now we're going to go back up here. I don't want a box around all of it, but I do just want that bottom border. I left click there, click out of the box, and there it is. It makes it nice and it tells you that this is what you added together. All right. So now our top is kind of messed up. And so what we're going to do is we're going to highlight, pull to the right, and up here where it says merge and center, we're going to click it again. And what it did, once we clicked it, it unmerged and centered, but it's still highlighted. So now I can just click it again and it puts it across those 9 columns. Do the same thing for Sunday. Unmerge it, puts it over on the left hand side, remerge it, and it puts it right in the middle. Nice. Okay, so we need a little bit more room here, and so I'd like to have another row. I'm going to come over to the left side, number 3, and I want to put a row underneath this so I have a little bit more room to work. Okay, so if I click here And then once I have it highlighted, if I right click, it brings up a hidden box. And I'm just going to tell it to insert, and it gave me an extra row. I can do that again. I can insert, and it gave me an extra row. Or I can right click and I can delete, and it takes away that row. Okay? So to make this kind of nice and pretty, say this is pin 1. Drag, let go, merge, bold it. This is pin 2. All right, so now we have good totals here at the end of the day. Everything is, we can keep changing it as our day changes. And our numbers keep changing, and they stay correct. If we get down to it and we only put 2.5 head in there, we can change it that way, and it's going, if it doesn't round up, we can do a round up formula. And you keep your fresh cattle down here and your total works down here. You can do the same thing if you wanted to know how many rerun cattle you ran through the day. This cell, you want it to equals, and it's going to be this one plus the next one plus that one. And then once we get all the ones in there that we want, tab out of it, and it gives you the number of rerun cattle. All right. Real quick, I'll show you how to do your cheat sheet calculator. So you're going to do entries, entries, cattle, and total. Okay. We know that we have to have 3 to make a cutting, or to make a class, right? We're going to grab, once we get that number in there, again, this little square on the right bottom side, when you grab it and you drag it down, now you'll notice it says 3 in the right hand corner. Okay, if you hit the control and you move it down, it tells you the number you're going to go down. Okay? The other thing you can do is Excel recognizes when you start to do a sequence. So if I highlight those, now I grab it and pull it down, it follows that sequence all the way down. Okay? So that's how many entries we have. We're going to put 3 head per cutter in here. Again, we're just going to grab it and drag it down. Since there was no sequence, it kept it at 3. Now our very simple formula equals this number times this number, tab. Okay, grab that little box again, drag it to the bottom, and it's going to automatically fill your formula all the way down. Look up at your formula box, and it's absolutely perfect. Okay, make it easy to read, bold it, center it, grab left hand down to the bottom, let go, put a nice little border on there, and ta-da, there you go. Okay, so now if we go over to our view button, this is where we're in a normal spreadsheet view. We can go to a page break view, which tells us that this is going to be page 1, and then it says this is going to be page 2. So not everything's over on page 1 right now. And we kind of want it to be on page 1, so we're going to manipulate things a little bit. First thing we can do right off the bat is make this a lot skinnier little column. But we still got everything on this side. Okay, so if we go to print file, or file print, and look at it, then we're missing some of our stuff on the right hand side, and that's not what we want to do. Go back. You can either grab the outside of this when you get the double arrows, left click, pull it inside, Okay, now you're only going to print one page, but you're not going to print the stuff that's on the outside that's in the gray. It's not going to print. So if you grab your blue line again and just pull it to the right, you still got a page 2 over there. See if you can grab this one and pull it to the right, and voila, it went ahead and it says now it'll put it all on one page. Go back over to File and Print, and there is your cattle card. It looks lovely. Okay. The other thing you can look at is your page layout, and that will show you what your page looks like as a page. Okay, make this a little bit smaller. And you can do some of your manipulating up here too, where if you grab on the very top where you see the ruler, you can grab and change your margins right there if you want to. And watch my left margin, it goes that way. Go to the top of the page, it goes that way. So you can change a lot of these. You can manipulate it just from your page layout right here too. Okay. And it looks great. So that's how I do my cattle card. All those simple calculations you can use on a deposit slip. Like I said, you get a bunch of numbers. Okay. Oops, don't want that as a bold. Go back and get rid of our bold. Maybe make it smaller. Just that way. Okay, so if we grab our top, drag it all the way to the bottom, and we tell it to auto sum, then we have our number down here, but it doesn't have a dollar sign or anything that looks kind of cool. So if we highlight, if you go to the top where you get the drop down arrow and click it, it'll highlight the whole column. So whatever I do right now, it's going to affect the entire column. So if I want that bigger, it's going to affect the entire column. All right. If I go over here to my numbers and my dollar sign, and I click that dollar sign, it goes ahead and it puts a dollar sign on everything. All right. If I don't want my decimals in that spot, or if I don't want them to show at all, again, we do the right click, which brings up the hidden menu, go down to Format Cells, and that brings up this cool little box that I can put 0 decimal points in there. I hit OK, and now it just gives me the dollar amounts without my decimals. But I kind of like my decimal points in there, so I go back and put 2 in there. And I can do different types of currency where it'll show up as my negatives will show up as red, or they show up with a parentheses, or they show up with a negative. And you could do your date and your times, all kinds of stuff in here. All right. You can also do your alignments. You can wrap text, shrink text, merge your cells, change your fonts. If you need to do a strike through on something, you can strike through it. And it'll show up like this. You can superscript it. Get rid of our super. Or you can subscript it. All kinds of stuff you can do. Here's your borders again. Okay. And there we go. That is cattle card. Simple Excel directions, and let me know what you think.